there's the lady recording in progress, and we're rolling again, gents. Good to have you guys. We've got Tom Murphy and Joe Bianca, Jason Blewett, of course. There's no Pegasus weekend hangover here. No rest for the weary. We're right back on it in a big way. I mean, we're coming up on a huge weekend, but love catching up with these guys and in general, just talking about the game. And it gets even better when you can talk about West Point thoroughbreds and our horses. Guys, I won't beat around the bush. It was a tough Saturday at Gulfstream. A great couple of days down here. We had a lot of partners in town. The happy hour on Friday just didn't get the racing luck we needed. Joe and Tommy, Joe, I'll start with you. We haven't really talked, I mean, minus some texting here and there regarding just what you thought about integration and the trip and the ride and everything else. So, I mean, the floor is yours, Senator. Let's hear your opinion on integration coming out of the turf race.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought he should have been in the spot where Warm Heart was. Like, I thought those spots should have been reversed down the backstretch. And I don't think Tyler did anything specifically wrong in that case. Like, I think he got him into an okay spot, but it was just I didn't love the idea of the filly getting the jump on us, and that's what ended up happening. And Jeff Lowe said it off air that he seemed like he was a little busy down the backstretch on integration, so I don't know if that he loved that turf course necessarily. And then obviously it was a bummer to get shut off the way that he did. In hindsight, obviously you'd rather follow the filly up the inside, but then you could get stuck there as well. And I thought he still ran well. He was only beaten a length and 3/4. He got a 98 buyer, where it's like if a horse runs in their fourth career start and get a 98 buyer and you're disappointed, chances are that's a pretty damn good horse. So I'm still obviously very, very optimistic for the rest of the year. It was a bummer that he didn't get the win. Obviously, it was a bummer, I'm sure, more for you guys who were there in person. But, for like I said, like if that is considered like a down race for him, we got something going, and I can't wait to see what he does the rest of the year, this Saturday notwithstanding.
Tommy, what do you do with him going forward? I mean, where do you stand in your mind if you're Shug, you're Terry, you're Bill Farish without the money like me?
Makes two of us.
Exactly. What are you doing with him? I mean, where do you go next with integration? What are your thoughts between his next start maybe and even sort of planning out the rest of the year with him?
I think the first one, the big circle on the calendar should be Derby Day, and kind of find your way to get there. And I think Maker's Mark, Mount Keeneland, about a month or so before, is the perfect spot to kind of get him back to the races. Maybe a little short. There might be some decent European milers coming over, as we've seen in years past. So it may not be the greatest start for him, but I still think that's a race that he can win. He obviously has a talent, better trip. We'd have a better result in Pegasus. And as I was watching the replay over and over and over, I just kept thinking to myself, man, if Catnip didn't just have us kind of pinned where we were, I think we probably would have caught that European filly, and we could have had some clean air. Because when he finally got in the Pegasus, he came with that closing kick that we're so used to seeing from him. It was just explosive, and he just here, there, and gone. And then he got it, and the wire came up a little too fast for him. So obviously it's a bummer to win, but I would imagine Keeneland, then Derby Day. Then even after that, the big grade ones up in New York for the summer, and hopefully finish up with the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, definitely. I think my mindset is pretty much the same as yours. Certainly the race Derby Day, the good Lord willing, we're able to make that, and he stays healthy, and he came out of the race in great shape. In fact, I stopped back at the barn Saturday night. Reeve McGahee and Anthony Hamilton, Shug's two assistants, and I mean, they're world-class horsemen in their own right, and great guys too. And we had a little bit of a, misery loves company, a little bit of a powwow in the Gulfstream office. But we were all kind of on the same page as far as being happy the horse came out of the race in such good shape physically. And I think some respects it was like he didn't even run. Love, love, love. The Manhattan will always be my favorite turf race on the planet. Would love, especially at Saratoga, of course, on Belmont Day. Would love to have a horse in that. Maybe more than one horse. We've got, between Cortez, Winning Spirit, Ohana Honor. I don't want to slight anybody. We've got a lot of like potentially very good older turf horses for the year. So let's hope that works out. Now, turning the page as we often do in racing, I mean, you kind of lick your wounds, but it's back to work. It's back to the grindstone. We're coming up on just like a monstrous Saturday and weekend. Mainly kicking it off down here, guys, in my neck of the woods at Gulfstream Park. Vinny Viola, very gracious. I mean, him and Terry go back a long ways to the West Point Academy. They've been close friends for now decades. Graciously sold West Point a little piece of that horse, Born Noble. Quick thought from either of you guys. I mean, I was really impressed with that race first out.
I mean, he was unbelievable first time out, like to run a 93 buyer while drifting it in the stretch and still clearly figuring things out. Like, he's just one of those horses I've been kind of counting down the days until we get to see him again. And, Christophe Clement's horse in the race got a big figure first time out. It's Taffy Joseph's horse to the outside, won by 10 1/4. But I don't know, man. If this horse breaks and comes running, they're gonna have a tough time catching him, I think. And yeah, like what more could you ask for, other than just beyond like an undefeated 3-year-old early in the season with still enough time to get to the Derby and have the bottom to potentially win it. Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself or ourselves here, but I mean, sky's the limit with him for sure. And hopefully he can replicate that race on Saturday or even run a little bit better than that.
And here are the PPs. I got to think, Tommy, just his greenness that he showed, and it almost for a second looked like he might just like make a left turn into the rail. Got to think he's going to be a little more polished. Wouldn't you think second time out on Saturday with him?
Yeah, 100%. I think he learned a lot in that race, and obviously Todd trains him, and Todd's one of the best around. So, and he's seen a lot of horses like this too, so he knows what he's doing here. I have complete faith in him, and I just going back and watching that race still blows my mind how green he was and how easy he made it look winning that race. It was just fantastic. And now I see the odds here, and he's even money. So
is that what he is? I kept looking to see, if the morning line was out. I checked like 40 minutes ago. It was, and I was curious. I mean, we're going to be odds on, I would think, in that, and he's certainly odds on even at even money. So we won't get rich, but hopefully he takes a step forward. And field solid, as Joe was saying, that Ari's Magic ran a fast race on Ragozin. Just ran. It's nice seeing a horse that just ran on January 5th coming back with not that much time between races for Christoph. We'll see how he does. A big day, though. Tons of stakes. I know my good pal and our good pal, and certainly a partner of West Point Thoroughbreds, Mike Rapoli, looks loaded on the day with the return of fierceness. Scalable, who beat our Miss Enchanted's coming back in the forward gal. I already went by Legalized, though. How about, and we've got Legalized coming in for Cherie. Got up to Palmetto, saw this horse train a couple of mornings ago. He looks fantastic, and he's been fantastic. Joe, I mean, in terms of constitution, it just seems with each passing Saturday or weekend of racing, I mean, at this point, he's going to be standing for a minimum of like 200K next year. It's incredible with him.
Yeah, and if you remember, he was in a pretty stacked freshman sire class. That was the one with American Pharaoh in it as well. He had a bunch of nice horses in that, and he managed to, eclipse all of them and become clearly the best stallion, I think, from that group. And you can see that just from him and Born Noble and Tis the Law, some of the horses that he's had, like, they run the gamut in terms of distance. You can get a sprinter, a router, you can get a turf horse from time to time. And yeah, I mean, we only own a small piece of him, but he's super, super exciting, Legalized. I don't know how you guys felt, but I was watching the Sugar Bowl last time out, and I didn't love the ride he got because he was outside. And I thought Brian Hernandez, who's a really good rider, had a chance to take him back off of what was a pretty contested pace. And he didn't even bother. And I was like, what is this guy doing? And then I see them run in the stretch and see him run away. I'm like, okay, he knew it didn't matter, And so that was one of the things I thought was really cool about that last effort. And now he draws outside again. Saez is going to have a lot of options, you would think, on him. Like, I don't know, man. He really impressed me in that fairgrounds race.
Oh, he was good, even with the ground loss. Like you said, I mean, Hernandez, I guess, knew what he had beneath him and is like, I'm not taking a chance getting stuck behind horses. I'd rather just lose the ground, and when it's time to punch, we're gonna punch. What about it, Tommy? I mean, as far as legalized looking at the field, we hear, and again, check your official sources Saturday morning, Equibase, Gulfstream Park. We hear that the D'Angelo horse, who's this is the kind of Florida bred. If I was still working at Gulfstream, I would have loved this horse, just having like such an exciting and talented and fast 2-year-old over the summer into the fall. I'd really be a fan, and I am a fan of the number one, Bentornato. We hear he's going to scratch, but regarding the field, I mean, does anybody in here scare you, Tommy, including the Asmussen horse and Risk It?
Yeah, Risk It obviously makes a lot of sense. Steve really knows his horses, so I think he's coming out of some really consulty stakes company and just cutting back to, which could be really interesting with him. And it's a gun runner, and just gun runners, they run crazy. So, and then the horse to that one's inside Mott horse kind of caught my eye a little bit as well. I know he's only one maiden and he ran all right in the Nashville and didn't do much in the Remsen and the slot, but I mean, you might be able to draw a line through that and do these big days. Bill Mott's always got his horses ready to go, and you can never count him out.
Well, he's coming off, and we should congratulate. I'm glad you mentioned that, Tommy. We should congratulate everybody that took home an Eclipse Award last week down here with the 2023 Eclipse Awards. I was really, I mean, I'm a Bill Mott guy. I have been my whole racing career as a fan and working in the industry. And I often say to people, if I was putting together a Mount Rushmore of trainers, number one spot is William I. Mott on my Mount Rushmore. It's pretty cool, Joe. I mean, when you think about just how long, and again, he's been enshrined in the Hall of Fame for decades now, but Bill Mott at this point of his career, taking down one championship division after another and winning the Eclipse Award as champion trainer. To me, that was one of the definite highlights looking back on 2023.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked about this last week on Rail Talk, and we were talking about the Champion Trainer Award. And I just thought, in terms of the numbers he has, and like not that Bill Mott's a mom and pop stable, but like comparatively to Chad Brown and Brad Cox and Pletcher and some of these other guys, he does not have as many horses as they do. To come up with 3 champions and to win as many big races as he did in 2023, like I thought you absolutely had to give it to him. I thought his acceptance speech was spot on, classy, thanked everybody, that put in the work to get him up on that stage. Yeah, he's one of those guys that like doesn't seek the limelight, does not seek the media attention, just a horseman through and through. And I respect that. And he's still as good as he ever was, clearly. And yeah, that was one of the more satisfying results of Eclipse Night. I thought was him getting that trophy.
Definitely. Now we'll face, I mean, Shug's in the Hall of Fame, of course. Chad will be a future Hall of Famer. Christoph will be. Todd's already in the Hall of Fame, is my point. You look at the bar names, just turning the page briefly, and we'll touch upon some of the other horses running on Saturday. Stop the Press will make his turf debut for Shug. Hasn't shown a whole lot. I mean, being candid about it, this horse has been just a massive disappointment on the dirt in his 3 starts. I get the vibe, though. I truly, and I'm going to bet a few dollars, I get the vibe Shug kind of all along has felt this horse might just really be a turf horse when it comes down to it. I mean, Joe, do you have any thoughts on him trying the grass Saturday at Tampa?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me it's more about, at least in my mind, I'm not in Shug's mind, but to me, what I like about this spot is less about the surface and more about if you're going to run in one of those 2-turn maiden races at Gulfstream, you're going to be running up against a lot of graded stakes horses, Derby potential horses. So, I mean, he's got some turf pedigree. It's not like an overwhelming grass pedigree, but Uncle Mo out of a Tappet mare, like those, they both can do whatever. I just think, first of all, in terms of stretching him out, and in terms of catching a field that you think he can compete with at this point, this is 100% the way to go. And I know it's not like a huge purse like you see sometimes at some of the other tracks, but I noticed 53,000 for Tampa for a maiden race compared to where they used to be. That's a good chunk of change. They used to run those races for like 26, 27,000. So I just noticed that as well. And yeah, there's no there's no real standout form on paper. You got a couple firsters for a couple of good barns. We'll see if they're the A team for those guys. But getting out to a mile and an eighth, catching a little softer competition, I think this is the right spot for him.
No soft competition, though, boys, for our good pal Scatify out in Cali. We've got a little West Coast action. Here we go with the Robert Lewis on Saturday, which will go as race 5 out at the Great Race Place. Scatify didn't cost all that much in the grand scheme of things. We had to give him a little time after the 2-year-old sale. We knew that when we bought him, though, and sure enough, I mean, he was trained and honed to perfection and to the minute first out in a very gritty score. No knocks, Tommy, right on the way he ran, but this is jumping head first right into the deep end of the pool with the kind of field that he's in against Saturday, where you've got, of course, the charge led by Nysos. But what'd you think of Scatify's debut, and what are your thoughts on him as we try to get some Derby points?
I was blown away by his debut. I didn't really expect him to run that well. Normally, sometimes with some of these saddler horses, they need a race or two to kind of get going, and then he just kind of ran them off their feet. I couldn't believe it. And I started to get thinking. I was like, man, this could be a fun little spring with him. He showed a lot of promise, and obviously, Sadler's thinks the same. Throwing him here with these two Baffert horses, especially Nysos, who's kind of stamped himself as kind of one of the early top 3-year-olds, even though we won't see him first Saturday in May. Same with Coach Prime with Churchill. That date's already passed for them to move Bob's horses. But I think this is a great spot to test him, and just it's a kind of good litmus test to say, all right, you beat expectations first out. Now you have 2 really good Baffert horses. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, beat a Baffert horse, highly regarded one in March of Time, and they, of course, gapped out and were well clear of everybody else in that race at Los Al right before Christmas. Beautiful horse. I love seeing pictures of him, just still shots of Scatify training out there. I'm wondering, Joe, and this is something I pondered, and I would imagine it's going to be basically a regular over the next couple of months. What happens, because none of these owners, and it was probably, and I'm sick of talking about it, I'm sick of hearing about Baffert, and I'm going to be honest here with you guys and everybody. I'm sick of hearing about Baffert. I'm sick of hearing about the Kentucky Derby regarding him and his suspension with Churchill. I'm just over it. But with none of these horses switching barns, and as Tommy said, the deadline passed, I mean, first and foremost, you got to be blown away with how well Nysos has run in his 2 races to date. But are these horses, all these Baffert horses, going to just clean up in the prep races, and horses are going to be getting into the Kentucky Derby, the ones that are eligible to run with like 15 Derby points might get you into the field? I mean, is that going to happen?
Yeah, I was still thinking, like, when you guys were talking about it, like, when you're betting a race and there's a horse in there for purse money only, and you got the horse who's in second, and you just take the purse money only horse out of your brain completely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like for me, is like, if we get beat by Nyso, it's like, so what? He's not going to be there. These points aren't going to matter to us. So I think, obviously we want to see him win this race, but if he runs second to a Baffert horse, or second and third to the 2 Bafferts, it's like not a terrible result for us, especially with a young horse like him. And, I don't love the Drew outside. He's going to have to hustle a little bit, I think, not to lose ground. But yeah, like, it's a unique opportunity where, even if you get run off your feet by Baffert, like, in terms of the Derby, doesn't really matter that much.
It'll be interesting, just the landscape. We might be looking at, again, a Kentucky Derby field. It'll be historical in the sense that none of these top prospects for Baffert, and normally and annually he's got a gazillion of them, or it seems like a gazillion of them, aside from having none of them with different trainers. We'll see in terms of just the point totals come the first Saturday in May, what we'll get, say, the 18th, 19th, and 20th horses in the Kentucky Derby field. Pretty interesting. Good luck to Scatify. I know we've got a lot of partners. They're expecting a big crew of Scatify partners and fans out there Saturday. So good luck to him in a very deep Robert B. Lewis field. Derby preps are the story of the weekend. Oh, I forgot to even mention Fierceness. Not that we need to spend a lot of time on the Holy Bull guys. I mean, he's going to be 1-5 and deservedly so. Do either of you, see any sort of possibility of him not winning the Holy Bull on Saturday? Joe, I'll start with you.
I mean, to me, the only possibility I can see is Hades popping out from the rail and just getting loose, and Fierceness not running his A race. Because we did see, Fierceness had those two huge races. He also has that stinker that he ran in the Champagne. Maybe he just didn't like the slop that day, but he's obviously got to run much closer to his good race in there. He's got enough speed that he's going to be able to lay close. If he shows up with his A race, he's going to win. The only thing I can see happening is, if Hades gets loose and Fierceness breaks a half step slow. Also, maybe if there's like a really torrid pace duel, maybe the Clement horse Otello can get up. But I just didn't love that race in the Mucho Macho Man. I thought he kind of won that race by default. But yeah, so if Fierceness breaks well and is on his game, I mean, it's just, to me, it's a question of how much.
Are we singling him, Tommy? Because I would single him. What do you think as far as like the Rainbow and late 5 cashing out with the Holy Bull?
And everyone's probably going to have him singled. Everyone's going to think, oh, this is the logical single. And considering that I crushed him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I'm going to find a way to single him anyway. But it's a hard race to see kind of anything else happening. Like Joe mentioned, he didn't fire in the slop in the Champagne, but people kind of dismissed him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile because of that, and kind of left him at a price, and he just blew their doors off. So if he
16.5 to 1, man, is that not? He
I
will go down as like one of the greatest like overlays, considering the hype around him in the history of the Breeders' Cup. I mean, he
100%.
really will.
And personally, for me, funny enough, he was, when I spent the summer working at Lane's End, he was in my barn. So
Wow.
I have a baby picture. I got to go find it somewhere. Him when he was about a couple weeks older. So he has a special place in my heart. So that's why I crushed him in the Breeders' Cup. I thought it'd be super cool, and then I didn't expect him to do that. But that figure, if he can run anywhere even close to that again, I think he just wins this race for fun and should be the favorite on Florida Derby Day. And if he runs well there too, it's more than likely the favorite of the Derby.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, it sounds like this race, and then assuming things go according to plan and the way most of us think it's going to play out on Saturday in the Holy Bull, Florida Derby, and then Churchill Downs. Name for the great Holy Bull. Love seeing his name in my DRF, my number 1 favorite horse of all time. Just timed it right when he was a 2-year-old. I was just getting into racing and never get tired of thinking or talking about the bull, for sure. So almost brings a tear to my eye. He was just so great. Let's bounce over to Oaklawn, guys. We've got a couple of horses running. A real dichotomy when you think of the fact we've got Happy Gray, and the weather it's been really tough. I certainly have a lot of, I'm not a trainer per se, but you gotta have, I don't care whether you're a huge barn like Steve Asmussen or a mom and pop stable, gotta have some empathy and sympathy for what it's been like just trying to train your horses this winter, because the weather's been so tough at Oaklawn Park. But we've got the long-awaited debut of Happy Gray. There he is, 6 to 1 in the program with Joel Rosario. It sounds like, guys, that Steve Asmussen likes this horse, which makes me happy and want to get a good effort out of him first time out, of course. What are you thinking, Joe? And just as far as Happy Gray debuting race 4 on Saturday at OP.
I'm excited to see him first time out. I think, with the pedigree he has, he might want to go a little bit longer. I think on paper, the 2, Mr. Phillip, is like clearly the horse to beat. That 85 buyer really sticks out. Did it from an outside post. Now is inside. Probably going to have to send from there. But I think the thing that gives me a little bit of pause is what you mentioned, Jay. And this doesn't just go for Happy Gray. This goes for the other firsters in here too. And there's a Brad Cox firster that I think is going to have a little steam in the 8. It's hard enough to get ready for a horse to win first out. when you have consistent training patterns, when you have them interrupted like what they have been with the rain and the snow and all the issues with the track at Oaklawn, I just think it's really tough to beat the horses who already have that race conditioning on your first go. So I think, if he can run third or fourth in this race, I think that'd be a really good stepping stone to something maybe a little bit further. And I think like you said, the Asmussens are high on him. I want to temper my expectations in large part because he has had that little bit of a gap with the workouts because of the track.
All right, let's get a good effort, win, lose, or draw, and a bridge and a stepping stone to his next start. And I didn't finish my thought. The dichotomy is you've got Happy Gray on one side, and then like the battle-hardened warrior Jackson Traveler, who's been a steadfast and just terrific West Point horse for a number of years now. I mean, longer than I've been with the company. I'm coming up on my 3rd year anniversary, which is great, and it went by like that. But Jackson was already racing and already winning races before I got to WPT. So we appreciate him. We love him. And Tommy, I remember where I was. I had just gotten back November 28th. I went for a run because he was running at Zia. Eastern time, it was fairly late in the afternoon. I was cooling out. I'm like, all right, let me put on Zia Park, which they didn't have any high def. It was like watching a race. It felt like from the 1920s. But he galloped in the Zia Sprint, and got to tell you, man, I was proud of him. I was a little relieved, if I'm being honest. And we'll see if he can do it again, stepping up and clearly facing a better field that he took down at Zia. But you got to love Jackson Traveler.
Yeah, I always have a soft spot for him. He's just a hard knocking horse that just always tries. And there's a lot of things that you can train a horse to do, but can't train him to have some heart and have some fight. And he has a lot of that in his last race. My jaw hit the floor. I didn't think he'd run it that well or run it that fast either. I think he was just barely off the track record out there too. And he was flying. But you're right. There are a lot of really nice horses. There are a lot of them that I've seen up here at Churchill that are running in a lot of these same races with Bango. Like Tejano Twist runs with him a lot, edge to edge, miles ahead.
This horse too. This horse Skelly. Look, I mean, he's a powerhouse.
That horse is just in a ridiculous vein of form, and it's 5-7 lifetime at Oaklawn, 7-10 at the distance. It's just that's going to be the horse to beat, and it's a speedball. And Ricardo's, I think, one of the better riders in the country if he can get loose on a lead and just kind of ride everyone to sleep. But you never know if the pace is going to break down. And with how the track has been lately, it's kind of up for grabs. And maybe Jackson, if he wants to be close to Skelly at the front of the race, I think he can have a shot to take him home.
That's the trip he wants. He can beat you on the front end, but he does love kind of getting over in the driver's seat and putting that pressure on you early before kicking it into high gear. Good luck to him. I mean, he's really been a partner's dream and a dream for us to campaign and own him and just think the world. Joe, Tommy, and I think the world of him. I'm sure most people listening do as well. One of like 7 horses trained by Steve Asmussen and the King Cotton. Quick thoughts, and Joe, I'm sure with Rail Talk, you are like locked in to the 3-year-old picture. I was scrolling through the Southwest, very competitive field, really competitive field. What do they get? 12? Yeah, you got 12 horses. No real big names per se. I get there's only one 2-year-old champion from last year, and that horse Fierceness is running Saturday at Gulfstream. But there's no real sort of proven stakes horse from last year per se. That said, though, looks like there's a number of horses coming in off career best efforts. You got any take on the Southwest? Because frankly, it was giving me a headache as I was trying to like work my way through to have some sort of opinion.
Yeah, no, you and me both. Like I don't really have a huge standout opinion that I think there's going to be a decent amount of speed. So in general, I'm kind of leaning towards the horses that can come from a little bit off of the pace. Because you got Otto the Conqueror, you got the Baffert horse, you got some speed on the outside as well. With
this Carbone is a rocket ship too.
Bone too.
Right?
Like he's going to take a lot of money too, being undefeated by a combined 12 lengths. I mean, I thought he's going to need a trip, but I think the 12 is a little bit interesting. Awesome Road. he could be rounding back into form. He had that big race first time out. He stunk it up in the Breeders' Futurity. And then last time in the Kentucky Jockey Club, I don't know what the hell happened. Like, I don't know whether he got away from Flavian Pratt or whatever, but he made that huge wide middle move, just an absolute no hope trip. So I'm hoping that speed to his inside, he can drop over a little bit and just kind of be able to save as much ground as you can from the 12 hole and come with that one run. But yeah, it's an interesting field. No superstars to note really, but a lot of horses who, if they come out of this race with like a 3 or 4 length win, they're right in the top echelon of the Derby contenders.
They absolutely are, especially when you consider, and I'm expecting Baffert to win some of these preps, and for his horses, even if they don't win, to scoop up Derby points. Now, this is a very important race for the 3-year-olds, obviously, on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. And Baffert's got the New York bred who had back-to-back wins at 13-1. In fact, if memory serves, we faced him with Indispensable, and I feel like he beat one of our horses. Oh, it was Concord Bridge in mid-October. I remember I was annoyed, and usually I root for the New York breds. Like, if there's one running out of town, especially in a glitzy race, for lack of a better term, like an open maiden race at Santa Anita on a weekend. But I'm like, I could have sworn I was pretty annoyed when this horse won, and it was Concord Bridge. We were 4th in that spot, but we're getting him healthy, and we'll have the new and improved Concord Bridge once he gets back to Sadler for sure. I'm excited to have him back. A couple more quickies here, guys, before we say goodbye. A quick trip to Fairgrounds. In fact, I'm correct. We've got a nice 1-2 punch on Saturday, middle of the card, little Western Command for our good buddy Greg Foley. We did an excellent job on Tuesdays at 2 a couple of weeks ago with Western Command on the turf. And then right after that, Tommy, what are we getting out of Happy Am I, man? I cannot lie. I have to be honest. That's the name of the game here. I was not expecting her to run an 85 buyer and basically win from my house down the block in her last start at Churchill. What are we doing, man, with her coming back as a 4-year-old on Saturday?
Yeah, it looks to continue some form. I actually got to watch her last race at Churchill with Dallas, and after she won going away like that, and I looked at HR like, where did that come from? Wow. Okay.
What'd he say? Never in doubt. I had her as good as hands could make a horse, right?
Some along the lines of classic Dallas, but she looks like, obviously, with the last 2 races that she's won, she goes to the front, just doesn't look back, and we get Ray Lou back up, who was on her when she broke her mate at a horseshoe. So I like that a lot. So I think we're just gonna have to run it. She's gonna have to run a race and try to get loose on a lead and just say, come and catch me. And if she does, I think we got this one in the bag.
I don't see a lot of speed. This 2-horse for another one of our
that's about it, really.
Right? I mean, and her form, she's really, you think about how tough this game is, and horses are in form and then they're not in form. And she was a one-time stake face, and in fact, stakes winner from, that would have been opening week at Saratoga, July 14th. But her form is nosedive. She looks like she can kind of, be a fly in the ointment, maybe trying to run with us early. But I mean, Joe, do you see any more speed in this race? Because I don't. Nor does Tommy.
Not at all. And I think honestly, if we get 7-2, that's a good price on her. I'm always hesitant to trust these morning lines for the West Point horses, just because we have a very engaged partner base who likes to bet a couple bucks, and we love that about them. But you just don't always get the kind of value you would if it was owned by a different person or a different syndicate. I mean, I think 5-2 even would be a good price on her, because she's got that gate speed. Like you guys are saying, the only other potential speed in the race is off form right now. So you don't know what you're going to get from her. And Ray Lou's a great aggressive rider, breaks from the rail. So he's got no reason to do anything else. Yeah, I like our chances a lot.
I do as well. I'm excited to see her run. Have a number of partners that are in on her on my end. And so good vibes all around with Happy Am I. The team will be happy. I couldn't resist. That's terrible, but
as the name
implies. Resist. Yeah, absolutely. So always great, guys, catching up for a few. I mean, again, it's understated, but monster weekend. Good luck to all the WPT horses across the country. I mean, literally from Florida out to Cali, and we'll definitely. What do you say we catch up next week to do a little recap of what went on?
Sounds good.
I'm gonna see you Saturday, Jay. So let's
Oh,
get a couple of winners home.
That's right. That's right. Well, good. I'm glad you're joining me here in South Florida. Can you guys see me again? I'm not still sharing my screen,
yeah,
correct?
we can see you.
Good. Yeah, I got my Jace's Road, rocking my Jace's Road Derby hat. Good update with him. I mean, that picture, by the way, with the updates this week looks like he's getting healthy. So fingers crossed we can have a comeback with Jace's Road. But yeah, Joe, safe flight down to Florida. Good luck to all of our horses. And you guys want to take any closing thoughts? Am I leaving anything out? I feel like I'm forgetting something, so the floor is yours.
I got one thing for you. I know my dad's gonna be happy that I mentioned this, but he's got one in Sunday at Gulfstream Park. Skinny Cosmo. She just won first off the claim for him, and she's running back quickly. So hopefully she can get it done.
This isn't the filly that bore out and won a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Wow, running right back.
Yep. He was looking at other races, and Dale saw this one come up, it's a perfect spot. So they talked and said, let's go for it. I was surprised when I saw her name come up on the entries. I called him. I said, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, she only won a week and a half ago. But good luck, and good luck to Sea Warrior Stable. That's the Murphy clan, their stable, aside from the Murphys being West Point partners. If you have not, Joe, did you catch her race, by the way, when Skinny caught? You got to go back and watch it. I missed it live too. I went back and watched the replay, and it's one of the more insane wins you'll ever see. As I told Dan and Kathleen during the happy hour, I'm like, and it was Heather Smolin as well, who works for Dan. I'm like, you're allowed one of those like a decade. That's how nuts this win was, right, Tommy?
Yeah, I was actually sitting right here watching it, and then I see her kind of blow the turn. I was like, oh, this race is toast. It's like she ran well for a little bit at least. And then as Junior kind of gives her a 1-2, and she gets right back into it. I couldn't believe it. I was jumping around, screaming and yelling. But yeah, it was awesome. So maybe she can this time not blow a turn and just take them all the way around.
Yeah, she's fast. Speed does well on this turf course. So yeah, good luck to her. Good luck to the gang. Great job, boys. Thank you again to Jeff Lowe for helping set this up behind the scenes. And we will see you. We'll see you next time.